Hi everybody and welcome to Vlogmas Day 16. I hope you've really been enjoying Vlogmas so far. Today I'm going to be showing you how I spin my yarn. A couple of things before we get started. This is not an all-inclusive tutorial. I'm not talking about spinning theory. I'm not talking about different techniques. I'm only going to show you the way that I spin my yarn. And I am self-taught, so it is a lot of unofficial knowledge. I'm sure there are so many more resources out there that you can go to if you're really interested in learning the theory behind spinning or the different techniques and what they're called. For starters, I know Knitting Expat has done a wonderful series on spinning over the past couple of years, so if you're looking more for that style, I recommend you check her out. But today, I'm just going to show you how I spin. I don't know the official terms for the things that I'm doing. I don't even honestly know if I know all of the official names for every part of my machine, but I just kind of it was just something that I really wanted to do. And so I just tried to figure it out, trial and error, and eventually I did. So I just kept going until I figured it out. So what I would like to do in this video is share basically the bare minimum that you will need to learn how to spin on a spinning wheel. And these are the skills that I have developed over the past 3 or 4 years. And I pretty much spin the same way every time. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share with you the fiber that I'm going to be using. Today, I'm going to be using a braid, and this was a gift from my friend Jen for my birthday, and it is from Direful Yarns, and the colorway name is Zombies Ate My Neighbors. And I cannot wait to see how this spins up. If I've learned anything over the past couple of years of spinning, it's that it always comes out differently than what you think it will. And these colors are beautiful. I can't wait to see them all mixed together with the teals and the golds and the kind of the reddish pinks, and it's gonna look fabulous. So the fiber content is 80/20 superwash merino nylon. Now, as a new spinner, the fiber content is very important. You want to make sure that you're working with something that is not very difficult. So I highly recommend you try out some superwash merino to begin with. And I would stay away from anything that has silk or alpaca in it as a beginner. So that being said, I'm going to give you a little tour of my machine and then we'll get started. Okay, and I know I'm gonna get so many questions on my wheel because I always do. This is a National Custom Spidworks wheel. It's all aluminum. They do not make these anymore, but it is an all aluminum production wheel. So this is called the flyer. This is called the bobbin. My bobbin, the way my bobbin works is this little piece just comes down and it just slides on and off the rod. And then I have my tension band here, and I just like to use some cotton. You can use leather for my tension band. And this is my tension knob, so that controls my tension. And then come around here, and then you see I have my orifice here, my orifice hook. That's how I pull everything through. The wheel itself, the drive band, which my drive band I probably need to replace my drive band, and the pedals. So let's get started. So I'm going to be putting a little bit of tough woolens on, not too much because I don't want the fiber to stick to my hands, but because of COVID, I have been washing my hands a ton and they feel super dry, so it kind of feels icky to touch any fiber right now, to be honest. Which is kind of part of the reason why I haven't done a whole lot of spinning this year. So I'm actually not going to do a whole lot of fiber prep. You will need to do different fiber prep depending on what you're using. If you're using a bat, I find it's easier to split it up. If you're using Rolags, I think honestly I would probably recommend starting with Rolags because I think they're the easiest item to spin with the least amount of prep. And for braids, I just like to split it. So, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. There's different ways that you can spin it. again, I'm not getting into the different techniques. I know that Mina on Knitting Expat talks a lot about fractal spins and all kinds of different techniques that you can do. You could break up your braid and split it up by color, but I'm just gonna let it do its thing. I think that for me, I like it when it's random. So I just undid the braid here, and I'm just gonna look for where the fiber naturally splits in the middle, and I'm just gonna pull it apart. And I'm gonna just pull it right down the middle. And it doesn't have to be exact. I kind of just let the fiber do whatever the fiber really wants to do. And then I'm gonna take one piece and roll it up and set it aside for later. And then I'm gonna take the next piece and I'm gonna do that again. And depending on how thick your braid is, I'll probably do this about 4 times or so. So then again, I take one piece, roll it up, and I'm just rolling it around my hand and then sticking the center through so I have like a little thing for later. And then I can see that this braid still wants to split a little bit, so I'm going to just do it again. And that's the way I like to break down my braids. Just let the fiber do what it wants to do, because when it comes to actually spinning it up, it's going to be a lot more manageable if I'm letting it split the way it wants to be split instead of trying to force it. Set this aside. And I'm looking at this piece now, and there's a few splits throughout it, but it looks pretty good. It looks like a good size to start with. And it doesn't really matter how big you're starting with. It matters about how well you draft it. Now, some people like to pre-draft. And what I mean by pre-draft is basically you're stretching the fibers out to the thickness that you want to spin in the yarn. So the longer you pull a piece, the thinner your yarn's gonna be. And I like to challenge myself to spin as thin as possible. So we are gonna be shooting for a heavy fingering / sport weight today. So now it's time to actually set it up. So I'm going to put my orifice hook, I'm just gonna help me loop it through. And this is my guide, so as I spin, I will move this clip up and down, so that will be where the yarn twists onto the bobbin. And then I have another guide here to just straighten it out before it goes into the orifice. I don't know if you can see that right there. And then I'm going to pull it through the orifice. So on my guide, I do have a loop on my leader yarn, I have a loop on this end, and that is what I'm going to start with my fiber. So I'm just gonna pull a little piece of fiber out, stick it through that loop, and then loop it over and hold it double on the other side so they're connected. So the first couple of turns on my wheel, I'm going to be playing around with my tension and finding the right tension for this particular yarn. So my guide actually has these clips right here. So I try to get my guide as close to, and this part doesn't matter at all. It's just how I like to spin. My guide I like to have it as close to the tension yarn as possible without it actually catching while I'm spinning. So for the purposes of this yarn, I always start with turning my wheel clockwise. I always do that because I know that when I ply it, I will be turning my wheel counterclockwise, because you want to ply the yarn in the opposite direction of what you spun it in. So I think my tension is a little tight right now, so I'm going to go ahead and just start pedaling and my tension's a little too loose to be pulling the yarn onto the bobbin, so I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. And sometimes this leader yarn is not the best. I'm using cotton, and the way I have it tied on here, it has a hard time getting started. So I don't know if you can see, see that up there. Let me get a different angle. But what I did is I just kind of helped it along and gave it some twist onto the bobbin. So now I'm just going, oh, and I twisted it the wrong way. So I'm gonna give it a little help going the opposite way. There we go. And I'm just gonna start pedaling. And then as I find my right tension, I'll notice that my yarn, I'll start to feel my yarn twisting, and I'll show you that up close in a minute. And then as I get the twist that I would like in the yarn, I will start feeding it onto the bobbin. And I'll continue to just kind of play around with my tension until I get something that feels like it's not pulling too hard or not pulling enough. So I'm just going to do this for a few minutes. Again, this video is not meant to be technical. It's just, you probably need to have some knowledge of spinning background to be able to pick up on this video. This is more of a video just to show you how I spin my yarn and how to spin on a wheel. And maybe if you've been a spinner for a long time, you'll learn a new technique that you didn't think of, and maybe there's some techniques that you think I need to know, and you can just put those in the comments below and I will try them out. Okay, so as you can see, I've got some yarn there. So now I'm going to switch camera angles and just let you see what I'm doing with the yarn back here. So I don't pre-drop, so I like to just kind of pull a little bit out at a time, spin it up, and then feed it on. But it is a quick process that happens pretty quickly, so. Try to turn my hand out of the way so that you can see what I'm doing. And if your wheel's anything like mine, you might need to adjust the tension as you spin. Mine likes to loosen and tighten on its own. That's probably more to do with the fact that my wheel is aluminum than anything else. Okay, so that's pretty much it. It really is that simple. Once you practice, it does take a ton of practice and trial and error. Do not give up, because I promise you, the more you do it, the better you'll be. It's one of those things where you really do need to continue to practice. So the rest of this video, I will be just doing a time lapse of me spinning, and then I will meet you back at the end, which will actually, for you guys, it'll be in like 10 to 15 minutes. For me, it'll be tomorrow. So I will see you then. Thought you guys might be interested in knowing that I just finished half the braid, half of the first braid, so I'm about a quarter of the way through the spinning. It took me about 2 hours. It's a little after 4. I started a little after 2:30, so about an hour and a half. And I am watching Knit for Brains. I am almost fully caught up. I'm on the most current episode now, so that makes me very happy. And then when I'm done watching this episode, I'm going to probably listen to audiobooks, or I don't know, Jason should be off work soon. He might come up here and we might watch some TV together or something. But I just thought you would be interested in knowing. These braids are about, it doesn't say on here, but I think they're about 4-ounce braids. So it took me about an hour and a half to spin up about 2 ounces. So we're getting there. All right, so it is just after 5 o'clock, and I just finished the entire first braid, and went ahead and split up the second braid. So 2:30, 3:30, 4:30. So it took me about 2.5 hours to spin up the first braid. So I'm hoping it'll take me about the same amount of time to do the second one. So I should be done close to like 8 o'clock. And then also I'll have to put some time in there for dinner too. But so super exciting. I'm gonna take a little break because I've been sitting here for way too long, and take Izzy out and get the mail and just do some stuff around the house, and I will get back to it. Okay guys, it's the next day and I'm going to show you how I wind off my single ply yarn, how I cake it up, and how I ply it. So we are going for a 2-ply sport weight yarn. So for this part, what I use is, this is called a nitty knotty. You can find them at pretty much any spinning supply store online or in person. Or you can make your own with PVC piping. There's plenty of tutorials online on how to do that. And then I will also be using my Lazy Susan, which I will show you a close-up of that through time lapse when I'm actually pulling it off. But essentially you just use this to wind your single off the bobbin into a skein form. So what I like to do is I just like to start from the middle, pinch the yarn with my thumb in the middle, and then I'm just gonna loop it over the top, under the bottom, over the top, under the bottom. So, and then you just keep doing that until you have all of your yarn wound off of your bobbin. And this part can take quite a bit of time because it's essentially hand winding a skein of yarn, but this is how I have to do it because it's the only resource that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and do a time lapse. I will be back to do a time lapse of me caking the yarn up. So fun stuff. Okay, so I have it's all skeined up on my nitty knotty. So that took like 10 to 15-ish minutes. Ooh, so now it is time to cake it up. I didn't tie anything because I'm not ready for it to be in actual skein form, just because I still need to apply it. But now, so essentially you're thinking of this as, if you're doing a 2-ply yarn, this is double the amount of length that it will be when you are done plying it. We're basically going to take all of this and have it. So the whole process of skeining it and winding it into a cake is going to be double the time that it will be when you're actually finished plying. So because once you ply, you do that same process again. So I am going to go ahead and cake it up now. So I have the Stanwood ball winder, and it's rather large, but I had more yarn than what I could spin into one cake, so I just broke it off when it got too big. And I will show you when we're applying how I attach it. Basically, I either, if the yarn is strong enough, I'll use magic knot technique, and if it's not strong enough, then I will just knot it together and trim off the ends. So here it is. When I ply, I'll be plying from the outside of this ball and the inside of this ball, and then I'll move to the outside to inside when it gets to that point. So here it is. It's gonna be such a pretty skein of yarn. I can't wait to see how these colors ply up together. So I've got my wheel all set up, and I am about to start plying. I'm going to move probably to this side because it's easier for you to see. So here we go. So I'm using the outside of my small ball and the inside of my big ball, and we will eventually meet in the middle. So I'm going to adjust my guide back to where I want it and rethread my leader yarn through the wheel. Just pull it through the orifice. Okay. And this time, instead of spinning clockwise, I'm gonna loosen up my tension a little bit. Instead of spinning clockwise, I'm gonna be spinning counterclockwise, and it looks like it's already, yeah, it's already pulling my leader onto the bobbin, which is good. Don't have to fight with that. And then I'm going to thread both ends of the yarn I'm applying through my little loop on my leader yarn. I don't know if you can see that. There they are. Okay. And I'm just gonna start spinning. And for me, plying is a lot simpler than spinning because I can see what how much twist is in my yarn a little better, and so I know when it's ready to feed onto the bobbin. And I just put I don't spin too tightly because I don't want it super unbalanced, but I normally do about 3 or 4 rotations for each piece. So I'm just going to keep doing that until it's all plied up.